Thank you, Kate. Yes, now if I start looking anxious as the time goes on, it's because it's a career-limiting move to be late for a ministerial launch, okay? So I am going to have to scoot at the end of this. I'm going to talk to you about the revitalisation of central Dandenong and the governance model that's been put in place for Dandenong. But I'm going to throw the hand grenade at the beginning before I start. I'm going to say that I think this is an extreme governance model. It's working beautifully, but it is extreme. And I am going to say that I don't think we have the governance of places and centres such as Dandenong resolved yet for a metropolitan-wide solution. We've put in place a model for a centre that was basically in crisis. So it is a failure mechanism. It is not a mechanism that I think can be replicated for centres that do not have such extreme needs. If we wait in our city for every centre to be in such need as Dandenong was before we step in, we have a problem as a city. I don't have the answer to that. I would like the conference to resolve that conundrum, please, by lunchtime tomorrow. What I am going to show you, though, is how the governance model that's been put in place for Dandenong has delivered planning certainty in line with a community-endorsed vision and a solution that is for a precinct-wide urban renewal. I think a lot of you in the room know where Dandenong is, but not all. Dandenong is 30 kilometres from Melbourne CBD, southeast of the CBD, and it is a centre that was a separate city for a very good part of its history. It was a gateway to the Gippsland to the east. It was an agricultural centre and a centre providing regional services. In the wave of industrialisation after the Second World War, it had major automotive and food production facilities come to it, so it became an industrial heart as well. And if you look at the centre as it is today, it's got about 1.3 million people living within 20 minutes of Dandenong. It is a city centre in its own right. Think of a centre such as Newcastle and you might get into the right mindset. It is, even though it has, since the Second World War, lost a lot of its industrial base, it still remains a centre with about 90,000 jobs. It has about 40% of Victoria's manufacturing within a 15 kilometres radius, and it has some real benefits going for it. It has fantastic rail and road connections, so it has a lot that is worth building on. It also has a multicultural community with huge pride. Easy to say, oh, the economy of Dandenong is failing, we have to rescue it. No, hang on, there's a very, very proud population in Dandenong, and it's with that community that we've been working. Dandenong was cited as one of the 6 CADs in Melbourne at 5 million, and it is the one that, of that polycentric city model, has been given the most attention, both in a governance sense and financial sense, from government. I'd also challenge the room to think about whether one can repeat the trick in a financial sense across 6 CADs across the city, not just for the capital injection the government's putting in, but can Melbourne support 6 economic centres plus the CBD? That makes a total of 7 economic centres in our city. But Dandenong has got in first, it already existed, and it does make sense. So I'm really glad that that injection has started with Dandenong. But when you look at the kind of things that had happened to Dandenong since the Second World War, it definitely has become a stranded economy. Holden and Hines, not wanting to pick on 2 respected companies, but they did remove and close their major plants in Dandenong. It was a major blow to the centre. Also, the retail heart was sucked out of the CBD or this retail centre of Dandenong, but with the development of the Dandenong Plaza Shopping Centre, and a mall-based shopping centre that left the old retail heart somewhat bereft and really struggling for reason for being. The centre also has a poor planning configuration. Just the very shape of the streets is a difficult shape. There's poor connect between the railway station, the main streets, the civic heart. So with those kind of major blows to its economy, a configuration of place that wasn't really making sense really started failing. I'd argue that wouldn't have mattered so much if all the other forces had been going for it. So, recognising all of this, we were brought in to basically, as a public agency, give Dandenong the lift that it needed. I want to walk you through very briefly in this presentation on the key steps. Yes, the second step is about governance, but the whole thing really is the relationship of governance to getting an outcome. What we've done is initially talked to a community. Our team talked to something like 6,000 Dandenong residents and continue to talk with those residents. For the first couple of years on the project, Vic Urban actually really copped quite a lot of criticism, saying nothing's happening in Dandenong. I think everyone expected we'd suddenly start building things. No, we were busy talking with the community. And the first step of that was producing a shared vision document. A document that was in words. It wasn't a master plan. It described a word picture of what that community wanted Dandenong to become. The next step, as part of that shared vision, was then the master plan. So it was the physical representation of the vision. All of that took a long while, and the master plan itself then had a whole other round of community consultation to see, well, we heard you with the shared vision, got sign-off from that, here's a master plan, is this what you meant? And the feedback from the residents was, and not just residents and people running businesses in Dandenong, was, yes, that is what we meant, and for God's sake, would you get on with it now? You know, so it was the best possible response. But then there's the planning certainty, which I will go back to in a moment, but that was needed in order to then, for us to be able to implement supportive infrastructure to actually do some very key projects to get the infrastructure right, to then attract catalytic seed projects from the government base in order to spark private investment. This whole project is about getting private investment momentum into Dandenong. It is not for us to develop Dandenong. We are just there as custodial partners to get it going, have the patience, have the long-term vision in order to nurture that outcome. So going back to the planning certainty and the governance, what the government did is put Vic Urban in as the planning referral authority for the area described by this yellow line in this plan. And I don't think this point is effective. In the right-hand side, within the yellow line, is the Dandenong Plaza shopping centre, going through from north to south, from near where the label of Melbourne CBD is, down to the south is Lonsdale Street, which is actually the Princess Highway. You can see the railway line cutting through and the old stockyard site south of the railway line. So it's a 170 hectare area, a large area of Dandenong was put in this declared area zone. And we were given a responsibility for the planning and development and nurturing of that zone for a period in the order of 15 to 20 years. It's a long horizon stuff. Now, why so long? Because we have to, as somebody said in the presentations just earlier, we have to be in there long enough for time to take hold for the benefits to evolve. This isn't quick injection stuff. This isn't SWAT team come and fix something and go out. It has to mature as an idea. We also need to stay with this project long enough for economic cycles to come and go. We didn't actually expect it to kind of go so quickly. We've obviously hit the GFC did hit the project, but we as a public agency have been able to roll with that punch with that community, and we will certainly continue to do that. So the planning certainty that has been provided is us as the referral authority, the Minister of Planning as the responsible authority, and so Vic Urban, working with the City of Greater Dandenong, having a right of comment in every planning application that comes through. That's not something that we take as a right of veto or anything like that. We see the right of comment as the right to work very closely with people who want to come and invest into the neighbourhood and work with them of what the vision of Dandenong is, work with them early before they've spent real money on a proposal and have the conversation. This is what we're setting out to achieve. How would you like to participate in that? So it's an absolute fast-tracking mechanism, us being able to have that right of voice in the planning process. And that fast-tracking is working. It's down to weeks, not months, and the investment by potential investors radically reduced as a result. We have some more heavy-duty powers that come with the declared area. Vic Urban's Act does allow for this type of thing. These powers have to be activated within our Act. They don't just come on any project. But with the powers that have come, we actually do have the power to acquire land. That does mean that we actually can even compulsorily acquire land if we need to. And we have, at times, in a very modest way, exercised those powers. But it also gives us the power to open and close roads. Critical to Dandenong because we have actually had to come in and do a bit of reshaping of the city centre. So how we've used those powers, those last powers that I spoke about, was particularly in the centre of Dandenong, just very close to the railway station, between the railway station and the Drum Theatre in Lonsdale Street, for those of you who know that area. Of that 170 hectares, we've taken 7 hectares and we've actually purchased them. Most by negotiation, a negotiation that was conducted after the community consultation around vision. People knew what the vision was, knew what was happening to their neighbourhood, and was a collective response to the vision. So most of the property developers, the owners I should say, understood the context within which this conversation about an acquisition of their property was being had. It wasn't just a heavy hand of government coming in and purchasing properties and hoping a good outcome would come out of it afterwards. Yes, a few people hung out for compulsory acquisition. They certainly have more favourable tax horizon if they did that, but so some did it for that reason. Others, yes, very, very modest number did hang out. But did you see any ugly headlines? I'd argue you couldn't find one. I shouldn't say that. Sure enough, somebody will find some fine print somewhere. But who has ever heard of buying up 7 hectares of a city's heart with such little disruption and with such public accord? It takes time. It takes a lot of talking. So in the governance structure that then's been put in place, apart from the planning certainty that was given through the powers that were activated for Vic Urban, it is a very simple diagram, but a very difficult context in reality. We work in with our, obviously, shareholder, the Victorian State Government, and with the City of Greater Dandenong. Now, that logo, Victoria, place to be, is a very, very simplified notion of what government is. We all know government is a multi-headed monster. People have different responsibilities within government. That box represents DPCD as the department responsible for Melbourne at 5 million, responsible for making sure Dandenong is a successful CAD. It includes Vic Roads, responsible for the road system, the Lonsdale Street going right through Dandenong and the road system around Dandenong. And it includes the Department of Transport, who are responsible for obviously things like the railway system. Each party having their own KPIs. You know, we have to keep the roads going effectively, we have to keep the trains going effectively. Can we as an agency expect people who want roads to run efficiently really give a damn about the subtleties of community and culture and placemaking? No, we can't really expect it. We want it, but can we, you know, it is not good enough to say they just should get it. So our team has been working very, very hard with these other parts of government, trying to get them equally enthused about the vision that the community is enthused about. We can't assume that government is going to be on the same kind of page as a community. And then with the City of Greater Dandenong, they are our partners. We have regular forums with them, you know, monthly PCGs, all of that. They are an essential partner in all of this. At our peril, should an agency such as Vic Urban come in and stomp over a local municipal entity and come in and take over their city and say, we're going to have it for 15 to 20 years and we'll give it back later. It is just not the way the world should work, and it's not working that way. We're working very closely with them. They are just very, very valuable partners. They're a voice in the planning applications. We have the one-stop shop where they are a strong voice in that, but they're also a voice with us in how we're nurturing the culture and the economy of Dandenong. And we certainly do respect and enjoy that relationship with them. I talked in that diagram about key infrastructure going in, and I'll just touch on a few pieces, because you can't expect the private sector to come in and invest at the scale we want them to invest in without giving the place a bit of a leg up. Lonsdale Street, Princess Highway, through the centre, was a traditional regional city main street, a proud main street. So it's still got a legacy of some nice buildings along it. But what was once this proud main street was a magnet in the heart of Dandenong, had become a great divide, a traffic sewer, totally marginalised by the Dandenong Plaza shopping centre in behind it, its retail purpose totally forgone. And so what we are doing is reversing that process by creating Lonsdale Street as a boulevard through Dandenong. Yes, part of it is place beautification, unashamedly place beautification. That is about pride of place. But it's also about pedestrian-friendly neighbourhood. It is about having bicycle lanes down that main street. It is about tempering traffic movement, traffic speed through the centre. So it was actually really hard just to cross the road in Dandenong before we're doing these works. We're now just making it easier to cross that road. It's pretty basic. Another key piece of infrastructure that we've worked in with government on is, believe it or not, a bridge. I think we get really excited about this bridge because Dandenong had hardly any connects between the south side of the railway line and its city heart. It was very basic but very, very important, that lack of connect. And it meant that the reason for going into the city centre was gone, the ease of going in was gone. We just had to get the place working in a very basic way. That bridge is, I'm glad to say, just been opened in the last few weeks. So it has unlocked a key blockage in that centre. Then government has also come in, and I'm glad to say, with the support of and we heard from the finance sector yesterday, that support also from the support of constructor Grocon, and government is actually occupying a key building in the reconfigured heart, the Government Services Building. It's going to have about 1,000 workers in it. It's a very important injection of just people into the new heart. That building, which is under construction now, it's made more headway since that shot, it will create about 400 full-time jobs and about $85 million into the region during construction. A really, really seriously important capital injection, but vote of confidence by government. And the cranes, just that symbol of things are happening, really, really important. Another seed project that's been very important is the old stockyard south of the railway line. This is a joint venture between Vic Urban and the City of Greater Dandenong, whose land it is, and those old stockyards have been converted into a residential neighbourhood. In the first tranche of the planning, we've actually introduced a whole new building typology into the heart. So the densification has been critical to this project. So the townhouse typology has been brought in. In the next tranche of Metro Village, we actually are going to be introducing medium rise for the first time into Dandenong. A risky venture, I grant, but that is why we exist as an agency, is to introduce new paradigms, new building typologies, new housing choices into centres such as this. So we are leading with our chins, leading with our balance sheet in doing these kind of projects. And then the private investments that I've talked about, just so very important. And we want it to be mixed-use private investment. The government's put in a commercial office building. This development, the Arcana building, was a $55 million investment by the Deal Corporation, and very early adopters and voted confidence in Dandenong, and full credit to Deal Corporation for having done this. It's got service departments in it, Punt Hill Service Departments, and it is proving a very, very successful venture. So we're already getting some of this kind of investment happening, and we want it to be commercial, residential, retail, a really good mixture and a good density of development. Another piece of key infrastructure was the Grenda Bus Company, a very proud Dandenong company, been there for decades. They've established their new headquarters as part of this reconfiguration. We negotiated with them for them to actually move, and they have re-established themselves into this new headquarters. Private investment in the residential sphere is also starting to happen too, and the blue dots represent the momentum that's happening. This is over 700 dwellings yield that's starting to happen. With this, we have evidence too of, which is a good thing and a bad thing, prices in Dandenong are starting to grow. Residential prices are starting to outstrip the area of this area of metropolitan Melbourne. That's a good thing because it's a vote of confidence in the area. It's a bad thing if we're on a journey to gentrifying Dandenong. So another thing that, as the agency with this responsibility, we actually have to make sure we have an affordable housing strategy to come along with this program, because right from the beginning we've realised that the last thing we want to do is gentrify Dandenong, marginalised communities that take such pride in this centre, even though at the moment it's one of the most affordable parts of Melbourne. So the stimulation of private investment is what it's all about. It is starting to happen, and with this governance model, we'll stay in there for the long term to nurture that outcome and to spark that private investment. But I do challenge you to have a think about how can we do this without having to go to such extraordinary lengths as a state government. Thank you.